Good evening. Welcome to this public briefing of the Democratic Labour Party. My name is Ralph Thorne, political leader of the Democratic Labour Party and candidate for the constituency of St. John. Joining me this evening is the candidate for Christchurch South, Mr. Corey Greenwich. Corey is an attorney at law. He also has been a member of the Electoral and Boundaries Commission, and this evening we want to focus on matters pertaining to the Electoral and Boundaries Commission. We are concerned as a party that the election, which is due on the 11th of February, is being conducted in a context and in circumstances of some haste. And let me make it clear from the beginning that the Democratic Labour Party is not uncomfortable with the date of the election, with the calling of the election. And let me assure the public and let me assure our supporters that we are ready to contest the election on the 11th day of February 2026. However, our concern is for those many voters who are being denied the opportunity to vote. Let me also say that those numbers of persons have approached us. They have approached us as a political party, and they have approached us as candidates. They are our constituents, and they have sought to have regularity brought to the issue of an enumeration exercise. Let me make that absolutely clear. I say again, the Democratic Labour Party is well prepared to contest the election. Indeed, we held the first meeting of all the meetings that are being held by the parties. We were out first on Sunday night with our meeting. Prior to that, we have had various political activities. Our paraphernalia is present, although our campaign is not based on the form of paraphernalia. You'll find that we are more into substance as a party. Now, let me begin by saying that I was canvassing this evening, as we all are, and I met a lady, and having left that lady's house, she gave me a slip of paper with her name, and this is in St. John, and she gave me her ID number. I am going to allow her to remain anonymous, and I will allow her ID number also to remain anonymous, but it is here. I wrote it when I left her house. She tried to register online, and she told me that as far as she is aware, her name is not appearing among those many voters who will be allowed to vote on the 11th day of February. That is the context. Now, on my way here, I heard one of our candidates, and I'll identify him, Mr. Simon Clark. He is our candidate for St. Philip North. Simon is a lawyer, as you know, and I heard Simon expressing the horror, perhaps, that several people are similarly disenfranchised. Their names are not on the list. Simon also referred to the absence from the list of young persons, of new voters, persons who ought to be new voters. They also are absent from the list. On more than one occasion, I've made reference to Mr. Ainsley Granger. Ainsley is our candidate for St. Michael East. Ainsley is a lawyer, and Ainsley knows what he's talking about. There was a list of 8,291 persons recently published, and Ainsley's name is connected to that list as a person to be disenfranchised. But that is only one among 8,291. That list has been much talked about in terms of the omissions, in terms of its irregularities. That list has been talked about as a list of disenfranchisement of persons who are alive. And there are names there of persons who are dead, of course. The list really is a story in confusion. I referred to, on the last weekend, the absence from the list of voters, of persons connected to a former prime minister of this country, and that prime minister happens to have been a Democratic Labour Party prime minister. We treat that as being fairly significant. Now, let us come to a larger context. Last year, when the enumeration exercise began, the government hired postmen. And I'm saying the government because, well, I'm saying the government deliberately. Under the law of Barbados, the Electoral and Boundaries Commission is a constitutional body. It's an independent body. And when we say independent, we mean that it is independent of the cabinet. It is independent of the government. It is like the court. The court must be, by the doctrine of separation of powers, always be independent of the government. The Electoral and Boundaries Commission has similar status. It ought to be independent of the government, except that the government appoints the chairman and the opposition is given the right to appoint two persons to that commission. Let me say that our two appointees on that commission are Deputy Chairman, Mr. Hal Gollop, and member, Miss Maxine McLean. Now, we complained a long time ago that persons who are hired to do work on behalf of the Electoral and Boundaries Commission ought to be the employees of the Electoral and Boundaries Commission. It is clear to us that the government was participating in the hiring of persons to conduct an enumeration exercise. Now, that is a measure of control which would cause us much concern and ought to cause Barbadians much concern. That is not the business of the government. That is the business of the Electoral and Boundaries Commission. So here you have the work of the Electoral and Boundaries Commission being done, being supervised, actively supervised by the government. And we say actively supervised because they hired postmen and they asked the postmen to do that work in 1 month. And then they were visited with an incentive payment. Those postmen were told that if they completed the exercise in less than 1 month, that they would receive an additional $1,000. Now, we're going to make reference to numbers because we intend to be factual here. As far as I'm aware, they were offered $3,000 to do it in 1 month. And if they completed the enumeration in less than 1 month, they'd receive an extra $1,000. Now, there's something fairly vulgar about that. Here it is, you're trying to conduct an enumeration exercise. And that enumeration exercise must necessarily be one that is characterized by integrity. It is not about haste. It is about accuracy. It is about propriety. It is about doing things the right way. It is not a financial exercise. It is not a bargain. It is not anything like that. You hire persons to do the work and you give them enough time to do the work. This is important work. This is work that is concerned with democracy and rights and justice. And here it is, you reduce it to a transaction. But that is the nature of the government. In any event, that exercise was completed by the postmen. And we now know what has been the result of that exercise. Now, apart from that, we understand, and Corey Greenwich will deal with those matters in greater detail, but it becomes a grave concern that the Electoral and Boundaries Commission, 5 of them, right, Corey, have seldom been meeting. Corey is going to give you the greater details on that. I am aware that a new commission was constituted in November last year. Mr. Greenwich will tell you how often they've met. It becomes a greater concern, though, that we're in January now. And we all know that a few days ago, the Prime Minister announced an election date. In January, that commission had not met. That commission that is solely and exclusively responsible for the conduct of elections in Barbados did not meet in January. Now, we protested. And we protested not on behalf of the Democratic Labour Party, but we protested on behalf of Barbadians. they, in response to us, I don't mind saying this, that it is our considered view that the Commission, through the offices of Mr. Roman Aline, who is chairman, scheduled a meeting. Now, there's something curious and curiously wrong about scheduling a meeting and saying to the persons how long that meeting shall last. Now, you're talking about an enumeration exercise. You're talking about an election. You're talking about a constitutional body. You're talking about a body that ought to be independent. And you're saying that a meeting of that body will last for an hour or two. Now, this is unusual. Maybe it's even unprecedented. How do you anticipate the length of a meeting on a matter of this importance? However you feel about that, the meeting was cancelled. And I am aware that no explanation or no proper explanation was given for the cancellation of that meeting. So here you have a prime minister having announced an election date. A meeting of the EBC is scheduled. The meeting is then cancelled. So we are into an election season. And the body that is responsible for the conduct and supervision and overall supervision of the election has not met. What is more significant is that within this interim period, I believe the chairman's voice has been heard. And the chairman's voice has been heard in relation to the election. But the commission that he chairs still has not met. We protest. We protest not on behalf of the Barbados of the people of Barbados. We protest not on behalf of the BLP nor the DLP. We protest on behalf of the people of Barbados who have a right to vote however they're going to vote. And what happens? Again, he responds by scheduling a meeting, and we are aware that that meeting took place today. Now, we don't know the result of that meeting. We don't know what it has achieved. But the fact of the matter is, it seems as if the Electoral and Boundaries Commission is responding only when the Democratic Labour Party protests on behalf of the people, the entire population, the entire voting population of Barbados. So it is this scenario in which the EBC does something, we protest, and they respond. It is as if we're dragging them into propriety. Well, if it must be that way, so must it be. We don't know the result of that meeting, but I will end where I began. I will end by saying that at this point, and this evening during a canvass, a constituent is still complaining that she has tried online access to registration and that she has failed. I referred to Mr. Simon Clark and his protests. I refer to Mr. Granger and his protests. I refer to scores and maybe even hundreds of Barbadians who have protested that they fear the loss of the right to vote. It is a fear that they have, and it is a legitimate fear. And as I've said before, I repeat, if it is one Barbadian, it is one too many. The rights of one become no less sacred than the rights of 100,000. We are all equal in this democracy, and democracy is not about the protection of majority rights. Democracy extends to the rights of the minority, even if that minority is one person. And so the Democratic Labour Party remains concerned and deeply concerned that this election is hastily called and that it is being conducted in breach of the rights of Barbadians, in breach of the rights of Barbadians to vote. That is our complaint. I will also reiterate that the Democratic Labour Party is well prepared and well ready to contest the election. The evidence of our preparedness is there. We have held the first public meeting. Indeed, before that first public meeting on Sunday night, we had held several what we call spot meetings across Barbados. I will also say that we were the first party to declare 30 candidates. The Barbados Labour Party declared its 30th candidate a few minutes before the election date was announced. So if there's any argument, if there's any red herring as to the state of readiness of these two parties, Barbadians, please consider the evidence. We've been ready for a while. It is the Barbados Labour Party that is catching up. So please don't be distracted by these non-arguments, which really are red herrings, and which may be intended to distract you from the issue. And the central issue here is the denial of the right of Barbadians and all Barbadians to vote. That is the issue here. And we speak for those Barbadians. We speak for those Barbadians who are being denied that right. That is our duty. That is our duty as a responsible political party. And what do we offer to Barbadians? Well, we have been approached by those Barbadians who are being denied the right to vote and who believe on good evidence that they will be denied the right to vote. That is their fear. And what do? I say to the government, and I say to the EBC, that if anyone, any Barbadian, says to us that he wants to vote and he insists that he must be given that right, we are prepared on his or her behalf to go to court. That is what the courts are there for. The Electoral and Boundaries Commission, as I said, is a constitutional body. It is an independent body. We fear that the government has been trespassing on the terrain of the Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Are we therefore entitled to ask Mr. Roman Aline, who is the chairman, if he is functioning and has been functioning independently of the commission that he chairs? That's a question that we're entitled to ask, and we ask it. I believe we're also entitled to ask Mr. Aline if he has been in communication with the government pertaining to matters of the Electoral and Boundaries Commission. We want the answers. Barbadians want the answers. They're entitled to the answers, because when the law was established within the Constitution, creating the Electoral and Boundaries Commission, it was contemplated that that Electoral and Boundaries Commission would be independent. Barbadians have a concern at this point, and we do too as a party. We have a concern that the independence of the Electoral and Boundaries Commission is under threat. We ask the government, tell us, is the Electoral and Boundaries Commission, is the independence of the Electoral and Boundaries Commission under threat? We may have to go to court to find these things out. I will pass now to Mr. Greenwich, Corey Greenwich, who has been an excellent spokesperson in the area. As I said, Corey is a former member of the commission. He is a lawyer, and he speaks with authority, both to the functioning of the Electoral and Boundaries Commission and as a lawyer. I am happy to be joined by you, Corey, this evening.
Thank you.
And I pass over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leader Thorne. Good evening to our fellow Barbadians. I echo the sentiments of the leader of the Democratic Labour Party in the concerns that we have with respect to the rights of Barbadians to vote in this election. I listened to the press briefing of the Prime Minister a few moments ago, and the Prime Minister has sought to make this an issue, as our leader has pointed out, of the readiness of the Democratic Labour Party. This is not about the readiness of either the Democratic Labour Party or the Barbados Labour Party. This is an issue of the readiness of the EBC and the readiness of the list, to the extent that every Barbadian who wishes to exercise their right to vote can do so. Mr. Thorne, I have similar examples in Christchurch South as I walk through the constituency. There are voters who I've met. One gentleman, he was over 70 years old. He has been on the voters list consistently for over 50 years. And all of a sudden, he is no longer on the list. In other words, there is a reasonable expectation for him that he would be on the list, because the law provides that the only way an elector can be removed from the list, the only way a voter can be removed from the list, is under the circumstances of death, or if that person now resides outside of the jurisdiction for an extended period of time over 5 years. The Electoral and Boundaries Commission published a list of over 8,000 persons which they propose to remove from the list. And the Electoral and Boundaries Commission has not to this day returned to the public to give them any results of that exercise. Have all 8,000 been removed from the list? How many responded? No information has come with respect to removal of persons from the list. In addition, new voters are not appearing on the list. As we walk through our constituencies, we meet 18, 19, 20-year-olds who would have become eligible after the 2022 election that are not appearing on the list. I myself, I have a son who would not have been eligible to vote in 2022, but is now eligible to vote in 2026, and he does not appear on the list. So the point that we are making is that this is not a matter of politicizing the Barbados Labour Party versus the Democratic Labour Party. Our job here today is to protect the voters, because on election day, if a voter turns up to a poll and their names are not on the list, there is actually very little recourse, save and except for a court action, in order to get on the list. And it is our contention, based on the evidence that all of us as candidates have noticed, that there will be hundreds, possibly thousands of persons that will not be on the list come polling day. In response to this, the Prime Minister has accused the Democratic Labour Party of threatening the reputation of Barbados with respect to election. I will be very clear tonight. That is fear-mongering. It is fear-mongering because at the point in time when the Democratic Labour Party is able to ask questions on behalf of the Barbadian people, those questions are treated as if we are not entitled to ask those questions. As our leader pointed out, the EBC has not met since the election was called. I have sat on the EBC for 5 years. I was on the EBC during the 2022 general election and during the 2025 by-election. And there is no scenario in which an election can be called and a writ is issued and 9 days expire before the commission is convened. That is unprecedented, certainly in the time that I have here, and I have not heard of any example prior to that, which means that the chairman is acting in proxy for the entire commission, and that is inappropriate. And we have the right to ask questions about that. Section 41C of the Constitution names all 5 of the commissioners, and it grants them the responsibility for the direction and conduct of the general election. And I asked you, Barbadians, if 5 commissioners have responsibility for the direction and conduct of the election, how are they to execute their duties if they are not able to meet? It is our understanding that a meeting has now taken place for the first time today on nomination day, and that meeting was scheduled to be a brief one. I also moved to the comments of the Prime Minister today in her press briefing, where she indicated that she has written letters both to CARICOM and to the Commonwealth to invite observers in to observe the elections in Barbados for 2026 on polling day, February 11th. I have served as a CARICOM observer in 4 separate elections across the region, and most recently in 2025, I served as Chief of Missions in the Curacao elections. Barbadians, bringing observers to Barbados does not address the problems that we are identifying. Observers in an election do just that. They observe. They have no power to affect anything that happens in the election. And after those observations are done, weeks after those observations are done, they issue a report to the government. I say this to say that this prime minister is about appearing to solve a problem without actually addressing the issue. We welcome observers in the election. We certainly do not object to observers from CARICOM and Commonwealth coming in to observe the election. But our contention is that that is not a solution to what we are identifying as chronic, as systematic problems that we are seeing on the ground and that we're hearing from voters. There are voters that are not on the list. The deadline is passed, and there is a real danger that persons can be disenfranchised. And this is a pattern with this government. I was on the EBC in 2022, when with just 3.5 years into the term of the Barbados Labour Party, with an overwhelming, an absolute majority in the parliament, save and except for one, the Prime Minister called the elections in the middle of the COVID pandemic. I lent my voice in opposition to having an election in which 6,000 plus persons would have been disenfranchised from voting. So this is a pattern in which it appears that this government does not take the right to vote seriously, to the extent that they're calling elections simply to consolidate power onto themselves. It is our contention, and I echo and I follow the leadership of the leader of the Democratic Labour Party, and I say we are prepared to fight for the rights of every Barbadian eligible to vote, up and beyond taking action in court. And that is why we are here today. Not to fight and talk about we're not ready. It is about fighting for the rights of Barbadian voters. Thank you.
Well said. And thank you very much, Corey. Well said as always. And thanks for your guidance given to Barbadians on the issue of elections and the law pertaining to elections. It must now be considered that there's no more authoritative voice than yours in these matters. Thanks very much. Just some housekeeping now. We started our meetings on Sunday at Independence Square. On Thursday night, we moved to Oistins for the presentation of our 30 candidates, and that meeting is at 7 o'clock. I want to address a matter that the public has been raising, and this is about proposals of this party. Now, we are having a manifesto unveiled very shortly, and that manifesto meeting is Tuesday next week at Gall Hill. So that I don't think it is right for us to disclose fully the list of new, fresh, and exciting proposals that we will be presenting to the Barbadian public. I repeat, we have revealed some. We've spoken of that. Ms. Verla de Pisa has spoken about proposals in relation to crime and tackling crime. You will hear other proposals. There are certainly very exciting proposals in relation to tax, the present tax regime as it applies to pensions. And I can say to you now, we will look at tax relief in relation to pensions. That is something that is long overdue. A man or a woman works an entire life, pays taxes, then he or she retires, receives a pension, and that pension becomes subject to tax. We intend to review that, and we intend to offer that tax relief to pensioners, certainly in relation to their pensions. But there are other exciting proposals as well. We will hear more of that on Tuesday. Tuesday at Gall Hill in St. John is the night that we present our manifesto. But before that, a very exciting meeting is planned for Oistins on Thursday night, and we will present our very capable team of Christchurch candidates. And of course, we have heard what Corey Greenwich is capable of. One of the most eloquent speakers, and eloquent not because his language is also pretty, but because he is a deep thinker and will be an excellent representative for Christchurch South. This meeting is being held in Christchurch South, in Oistins, and we will present an excellent team of candidates. Corey Greenwich, Christchurch South, Quincy Jones, Christchurch East Central, Christchurch West Central, Rashid Belgrave, Christchurch West, Andrew Cave, and Christchurch East, Mrs. Amoy Gilden-Bourne. Those are our 5 Christchurch candidates. Please come. The meeting will be streamed as well for those of you who cannot get there, but we prefer to see you there, of course, on Thursday night at 7 o'clock in Oistins, and then our manifesto meeting at Gall Hill on Tuesday night in St. John. So we know that you are very keen and excited to hear all of our manifesto pledges. You've heard some, but we don't wish to spoil the Gall Hill meeting by revealing all, but all will be revealed in a manifesto, which will be in printed form and will be available online for all Barbadians. We're taking this election seriously. We are saying to you that this government has failed Barbadians in terms of its legislative program. We need no further evidence of the failure of this government, certainly in its desire or in its mandate to pass law. And the parliament has brought law there and they have withdrawn it. We need not say to you what those pieces of legislation are. You know now. This is a government that has failed Barbadians in health. It is failing the children of this country in education. It has failed miserably the people of this country in terms of housing. It has failed the commuters of this country in relation to the transport board. It has failed and is continuing to fail the people of Barbados in terms of delivery of social welfare payments to people who cannot afford them. This is a government that has failed. This is a government that is living on an impression. And this is a government that salvages a reputation only by its ability to indulge the public in revelry. I think Barbadians have had enough of that. Barbados now needs serious government. Barbados needs government that is honest, competent. That is the kind of government that Barbadians need. And we really think that this government's time has come to an end. And evidence of that rests in the fact that this is a government that has been unable to live as a government for the extended term of 5 years. In the first event, it was less than 4 years. Here again, a government that is unable to live for less than 4 years. What is the problem with this government? The government has failed itself in terms of its inability to extend its life for 5 years, and it has failed Barbadians. And we honestly think it is a tired government, and the time has come for Barbadians to rest their hopes and their dreams in a new government. And we present an alternate government. We present a Democratic Labour Party government to serve Barbadians over the next 5 years. And I use the term serve, not rule, serve. We're about service. And one of the main problems with this government is that this government treats its time in office as a celebrity event. And that's why some people are losing faith, because this government has given an image to government that relates not to service, but to celebrity. It's a celebrity event. And it is an event without substance. We want to return this country, and we want to return government of this country to substance. On Thursday, we will also speak again of our intention as a party to disclose the assets of all of our members. We believe, Corey, and continue to believe, that integrity in public life legislation must become alive and must remain well, so that the people of Barbados know the financial circumstances of those who are entrusted with millions and billions of dollars to run a country. Barbadians must know the financial status of persons who sit in government. And we intend as a party to disclose our assets in advance of coming into office, so that that commitment is made to Barbadians. And not only is the commitment made, but the proof of commitment is made available to Barbadians. This is a serious party that intends to confront serious times. The Barbados Labour Party is tired, they're out of ideas, but we will be coming to you on Thursday, we'll be coming to you on Tuesday next week. So please stand by, and we will have a lot to say. Corey, I want to thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
As usual, excellent. And Barbadians, good night, and God bless you.
Persians, hear me now. If Barrow could talk today, I got Persians, hear me now. If Barrow could talk today, I got something to say. Why? Raise your flag, but open your eyes. If Barrow had to speak today, what I see would break my heart away. Nothing changed, just a mirror frame, same corruption, just a brand new name. My people, I'm sad to say, you reaping all you sow today. The pride and industry fade away, and now we fighting to find we way. Life at two extremes, I tell you so. Hope and hunger, high and low. Poverty mixing with champagne flow, but poor man still can't grow. Suffering and celebrating, starving while them still partaking. Nations rise, time to break that spell. Stop showing contempt for yourself. Change when thieves lead the way. Corruption sweet when give us pay, and government take what poor man lay. Taxation high like mountain peak, while schools and roads still spring a leak. Them flying high, them living sleek, but poor man vice still 2 weeks. So tell me now, who you blaming? Who make the system shaming? Them raise the dead, destroy the cane. No migration ease the pain. You be leaders like the clay, and now me are playing God today. Talking sweet but turn away from the people who make she laugh. Say alright, let we rise again, take back pride, build Barbados from inside. And Aaron, gone back to sleep again. Aaron, but I pray next time I wake, my people go rise, rise, I say. Bimshar still alive. Still alive, we just need to revive.